Kevin McCullough.
So glad to have you with us back in Times Square. Kevin McCullough, That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com, That Kevin Show on all social media. One of the areas we've been talking a lot in the last few days about all of the changes that are coming at seemingly lightning speed with the new administration, some of which is going to impact the entire issue of life and what life means in the country. Again, we have a pro-life president and a pro-life administration that I think is going to be more aggressively pro-life than anything we've seen prior to this, at least in the modern era. And rejoining me to discuss is best-selling author and pro-life leader, Abby Johnson, who is probably most well known for the fact that she was an operator of a Planned Parenthood clinic, and after many years came to the decision that that wasn't the thing for her anymore and decided to speak out. And she has been rescuing not only babies since, but also helping women leave that industry and find really new peace and new hope. Abby, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Kevin. Always good to be with you.
It's a new year, and I couldn't help but notice on the same week that Donald Trump gets sworn in that Cecile Richards dies. Mm-hmm. And I thought of you immediately when I heard the headline, because if you followed the headlines across the mainstream press, Cecile Richards, pioneering feminist, leader of women's rights, on and on the accolades went. And in my mind, I couldn't help but think about the 4 or 5 million baby girls that she had helped usher into the other side of death through her work at Planned Parenthood. And I was curious. I wanted to ask you at that moment, what was going through your head, Abby Johnson?
Yeah. Cecile was a friend when I worked at Planned Parenthood. And when I found out that she had this aggressive type of brain cancer, I reached out. Of course, though, when you leave Planned Parenthood, when you become a defector, as it will, you become invisible to them. And so any friendships that you had are immediately broken. They see you as a traitor. And so the attempts that I made went unanswered. And so then, all you can do is really pray and be hopeful. But I was sad. I was sad to see that she died with, what seemed to be no repentance, no sorrow for what she had done, because you're right. I mean, millions of children died under her watch. And, for many in the secular media, they would say, they did say she was a hero and a champion. And that was what I once believed. But those of us who know the destruction of Planned Parenthood know the truth. And
so let me ask you this.
It's a sad reality.
And I want to be very raw, or at least as willing as you are in this conversation. Is it your opinion, having been on both sides of the Planned Parenthood door, so to speak, that the people that are on the inside don't really know what's happening, don't really acknowledge that that is human life? Like, do you think it's possible that she died genuinely thinking that she didn't do what people who would disagree with her would assume that she would know she had done? But like, how deceptive is the work to the people that are in it?
It's such a good question, Kevin. I remember when I left Planned Parenthood, I remember talking to some pro-lifers and just talking about the things that happened when I worked at the clinic. I mean, terrible things, the jokes that we made. And I just, now it's such an embarrassment. It's almost like I look back on myself and I'm like, how could I have done those things? How could I have said those things? How could I have laughed at those things? How could these things have even come out of my mouth? And But that truly is what happens when you are blinded by sin and greed. Really, I mean, sometimes you just really can't see what is even in front of your face. I do think the higher you get up in Planned Parenthood, the harder it is to not see the truth. I think there are a lot of people that work in the clinic every day, just kind of your hourly workers that really don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But as I tell people all the time, as I rose up in the ranks of Planned Parenthood, I started to really wonder, is it that the organization is changing, or is it that I'm finally just seeing what we were about all along? And so I think as you get higher and higher up in the organization, you start to see, what was really behind that curtain. I think it does get harder to really deny who Planned Parenthood is, what Planned Parenthood is, and what they are about. And they are about making money off the death.
That is so important to point out. And I think one of the things that you can kind of point to by way of evidence of what you're saying is that under Cecile's leadership, the services that were offered to women that were supposedly women's health services that were outside of the scope of abortions practically evaporated. Like the breast exams, the cervical exams, other things that they were offering and saying, oh, it's all in the name of women's health, that basically dried up. And what it became was a franchise of providing abortions across the country, largely in the inner cities, largely in the poorest communities, largely in vulnerable areas where girls don't have a lot of options and a lot of people reaching them with other messages. And that was kind of by strategy. Let me shift gears just a touch because I don't want to end on something quite that negative. You watched the president be sworn in this week. You remember what it was like on the cycle of life under his first term. We've got 60 seconds left. What are you most hopeful about for this coming year?
I am, of course, we have great hope. The president showed us before that he believes in the sanctity of human life. And so I am hopeful that we will see more of that come from this current administration.
Abby Johnson, great to see you. Happy New Year. Happy Golden Age. And let's hope for a better 2025.
Absolutely.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.